Hello everyone and welcome to Production Lab. This is Dom, and in this video I'm going to show you some really powerful layering techniques for creating huge sounding drums. Let's get started. Layering drums is definitely an art in its own right, and if you learn how to do your layering right when it comes to drums, you will be rewarded tenfold. There are many ways that you can layer drums. One of the simplest ways is just to layer drums on top of each other, or you can start using filtering to separate elements and frequency ranges. But to be honest with you, most of these techniques have a little bit of room for error. And when it comes to drums, you don't want to compromise when it comes to the sound. So problems that might arise is phasing issues, it's loss of the low end if you're layering kick drums, it's unfocused sound. That this is really hard to tell by using monitor sometimes if you're not in a very well treated room. So what I'm going to show you here today is a foolproof way of layering your drums so that you can get the best sound possible. Now, why would you even want to start layering drums to begin with? Number one, you are able to create your own unique drum sounds, and this defines you as a producer. The second reason is because samples don't always work in the context of every mix or any production or any song. So you might want to isolate elements from each sample that you have in your library and combine them into one super sample. So what I'm going to do here today is I'm going to take a bunch of kick drums that I have in my folder, in my samples folder, and I'm going to combine them using the best elements of each kick drum to create a unique kick drum that will hopefully sound better than all these kick drums in isolation. So I'm going to play all the samples that I've selected here today. Let's listen to all the samples that I have here. Sample number 1, number 2. So as you can see, I have 4 very different samples, and I'm going to combine all of them so that I can create my own unique sample. So in order to do this, I'm going to be using Backbone because Backbone is a layering powerhouse. And you will see why. It has all the features that you need to create layered drum sounds. So I'm going to start with the very first sample, and I'm going to drag it into Backbone, and now I can immediately play it. This is the sound exactly like it sounds inside Cubase. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start making some decisions. This sample, I really like the low end that it has. So for this sample, I'm going to use it as my sub layer, the sub of my kick drum. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to double click on this and call it sub. And I'm going to make sure that this layer only contains the sub information. And there's a very easy way to achieve this in Backbone. I'm going to use the decompose feature. So I'm going to click on decompose, and now I'm going to separate the tonal element, which is actually the sub information, to the noise element. So I'm going to click on pre-listen, and let's listen to the noise element first, and now the tonal element. This is great because that's exactly what I need from this kick drum. I'm going to turn down the sensitivity because I don't want to hear those artifacts at the top. So this is great. I'm going to hit apply, and immediately we have the tonal element isolated here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go into my sample display, and I'm going to make sure that my sample starts at the very, very beginning. And I'm going to make sure I turn snap to zero crossing on so that I don't have any clicks. Great. This is my sub layer. What I can do straight away to enhance this sub layer is to go to my filter page and watch this now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to activate a high pass filter. And you might say, Dom, high pass filter, this is the sub layer, what's going on there? Stay with me. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn down the cutoff. If I leave it all the way up, we're not going to hear anything because basically we are cutting away all the frequencies. And I'm going to turn this down like this. And now I have all the information back. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn up my resonance. And I'm going to fine tune the filter so that we basically boost at the point where my sub resonates. Let's turn on the wave here as well and let's listen. Okay, perfect. Let's listen with and without the filter. This is quite a difference. The other thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that this sub layer is tight. So I'm going to go here to my amp envelope. Just make it tighter. I don't want this to flop around too much. So what we have here, high pass filter, cutoff at around 60, resonance, and again, without it, this little detail is going to pay off down the line. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my second layer. And the second layer is going to be my top layer. So I'm going to use this sample as my top layer. Let's solo it. Great. Now I'm going to leave this in solo and I'm going to go ahead and do the same exact thing. I'm going to go to decompose, pre-listen, and in this case, I'm going to only use the noise element. And this is great. That's what I need. I'm going to hit apply. And this I'm going to call top. One thing that I want to do straight away is I want to go here to my resynth and I want to resynthesize this sample. So I'm going to turn the resynth module on and immediately Backbone recognizes that this is a noise layer instead of a tonal layer. And I'm going to change the format and play a little bit with the format. Let's combine the two. And I can also change the speed. Let's listen without the top layer and with. If I want to add a little bit of attack to this top layer, I can go to my pitch page here and I'm going to add a little bit of envelope amount. So I can make this kick drum extremely punchy. I think this is going to be enough. Now, another thing that I want to do in this case is I want to make sure that when I play this sample across the keyboard, the top layer doesn't change pitch. So I don't want this to do this. What I want to make sure is that the key follow for the top layer is at 0. So I'm keeping the sub tunable so I can play it across the keyboard. Because maybe I want to tune my kick drum according to the key of my song, but the top layer that gives me the punch, I want it to remain the same. And another thing I might want to do is I want to go to my amp page and I want to turn up the velocity here. So when I play higher velocities, I'm going to get more of that top layer. And the lower the velocities, the darker the sound. And this is one more reason why Backbone is so powerful. You have total control over every single layer. And right now we only have 2. So let's go and add another layer. I'm going to add this layer here. And this I'm going to use as my knock layer. So let's go here, make it my knock layer. And I'm going to do the decompose again in this case. Pre-listen. And apply. So now what I'm going to do again is I'm going to turn on the resynth module here. And I'm going to play with the format a little bit again. Let's play all of them together. And again, I want to make sure that this one doesn't follow the pitch. And I'm going to also make this velocity sensitive. Okay, this is my knock, so this gives me a little bit of the meat in the low mid range. Last but not least, I'm going to add another layer, and this is going to be my stereo layer. Now, if you want to create these big stereo kick drums while still keeping your low-end information intact, this is where Backbone comes in handy. Because now what I can do is I can call this stereo left layer, and let's solo it. This is a big sounding sample, but I don't want the low end, I just want the top end. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to pre-listen, and I want just the noise element in this case. Okay, hit apply. Great. And here we go. Now we have just the noise element. And I'm going to resynthesize this because I want total control over this sample, and I'm going to show you why I'm doing this. I'm going to play with the format again. Yes. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this sample. So I'm going to hit Alt or Option on the Mac, and I'm going to drag this into the next slot. And there we go. This layer is now duplicated. So what I can do is I can rename this to stereo right noise, and I'm going to pan them hard left and hard right. If I want to get to this page, I can click on any one of these tabs, and now I am in the overview page. So let's listen to both of them. And let's play with the format on this layer. So now, as you can hear, we have a super wide kick drum, and we're only using these two layers. Let's unsolo them and let's listen to the full kick drum. And if I feel that these are a little bit slow, I can just turn up the speed. Let me introduce each element now, and let's see what we've done. Sub, top, knock, stereo left and right. And as the last thing, I can fine-tune the kick drum by changing the levels right here. So if I want more of the tonal level and a little bit more of the top, maybe I can add a little bit more knock and the stereo layers. Let's listen to the original samples again. And now the sample that we created. So I took elements from every one of these samples, and I can fine-tune it to fit my arrangement, my production, the song that I'm working on. And it doesn't stop there. We can also add effects to these layers. So if I hit on my effects tab here, I can bring up my effects. And as you can see, I have several routings. So I can have parallel, which is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to make sure that my subtonal layer is sent to the FX1 bus, and everything else is sent to the FX2 bus, as you can see here. So let's go and add a compressor to my subtonal layer. And then for the rest of the layers, I'm going to add a touch of distortion, just a touch of distortion, and a tiny bit of a short reverb. So very small room size and a very short main time. Just a touch. And here we go. We just created our very own custom kick drum. Now I can either keep working with this in Backbone, and I can tune it according to my track, or what I can do is I can drag it and drop it into my Cubase project as a sample. Here we go. This is our kick drum. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gives you some ideas on how to start layering samples with Backbone. Layering is so much fun. I would totally suggest that you get into this if you haven't done so already. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and don't forget to let us know what you'd like to see next. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.